Sleepy Hollow Season 3, Episode 3, Blood and Fear. Pretty cool episode because we got, two separate storylines. We got Team 1, which is Abbie and Ichabod facing Pandora, and a new threat that she's come up with. And then we have Team 2, which is Ginny and Joe going after the shard and trying to figure out what the heck is important about this thing all of a sudden, and who are the people coming after it. So I love that because I'm really excited to see their storyline advance and figure out who is coming after the shard. We get introduced to a character that may actually be a rival because Randall was already beaten in this episode by a new character. So she might become like our first rival for sort of the B team. I kind of hate to call them that because it's like, but that's just how it is. So they're the B team, and it seems like they have been introduced to their rival, and she works for someone who's apparently super dangerous, which is of course no surprise. But they're going into it. We have Ginny, who hasn't really been in that world for a while, and then we have Joe, who's never been in the world. He's being introduced to it. Like we know more than he does, which is kind of funny to think about, but he's being introduced into this world. He'll probably be joining, Ginny to help Abbie and Ichabod during the certain episodes as well, which I think will be pretty cool. And kind of add him into the quartet now that we don't, unfortunately, have Irving anymore. I'm looking forward to see Holly come back this season, actually, because I'd love to see how that plays out, where he works with someone who's inexperienced, and just that dialogue would probably just be really silly and ridiculous. So I'm kind of looking forward to that happening at some point this season. But we got their storyline. We have the main storyline, which was pretty fun. We had some pretty interesting stuff through this main storyline. Not just the case itself, which was pretty cool, with it being like Jack the Ripper, and they make Jack the Ripper sort of this mythological thing that's been around since 1066, they put it. And basically, it's on and off because people are basically possessed by this knife, and then when they die or the knife gets some form of tainted blood, the knife is weakened enough and it kind of just stops, and that's pretty much all there is to it. So I liked how they did that aspect of it. They kind of show that Pandora knows a bit about Abbie and Ichabod, and as soon as Ichabod saw the dead person, this is the fastest it's ever been, but it was like he saw the body, flashback. I was like, that was instantaneous. So that was very interesting. He instantly knew exactly what it was. Also, the flashback for this episode was the youngest we've ever seen Ichabod, as far as I can remember. I don't think, they've never done anything where it was like his birth or anything like that. We've never even seen him as a kid, I don't think. So this was kind of a landmark episode for like seeing young Ichabod. So that was actually kind of cool. And we see him dealing with the death. Well, we don't really see him dealing with it, but we see him when he first encounters evil, for the very first time ever, and it involves the loss of like his best friend at school, and he thinks he's being taken away because of the murders that took place, but we find out that it's actually because of a malaria outbreak that took place, which I just thought was interesting. It doesn't really have any bearing on the story. It just, father has connections and stuff like that. That's why he was actually taken away, and that's where the murder stopped, because the knife was tainted by diseased blood. So it was cool to get that flashback, youngest we've ever had Ichabod. And like they mentioned how like Pandora kind of knows Abbie and Ichabod. They know their secrets and they know their past. That's pretty deadly. Like, she knows these secrets, and she's bringing out creatures that can somehow, because of course she knows, like, okay, I send this random thing out into the world, it's going to be Abbie and Ichabod that take it on. So I'll send out creatures that will, display their weaknesses or draw out their weaknesses. And I think that's very cool. It's cool that we have a character that somehow has some form of insight into our two main characters, and I like that idea. And we're going to see that, hopefully, we'll see it develop pretty well with the next couple of monsters, and then I think it'll kind of explode into something really crazy, and we might get a full-on answer as to how she even remotely knows Abbie and Ichabod, aside from them being witnesses. So I'm looking forward to that. We got, at the end of this episode, although they defeated the enemy, we still had, I believe it was just one death in this episode. We still had one death based on the magical weapon. So the tree does bloom. There's like a flower that does bloom, and they make note of that early on in the episode when Pandora's looking at the tree, and it's just like a flower just like this as a horrible representation of a closed flower, but that's what it is. And it was blooming at the end, and she just laughs like perfect, like it still worked. And I don't know if it does have to do with how many deaths the weapon, you know, accomplishes, I guess, after she's created it, or the monster even. How many deaths, translate to the tree, but I feel like it does. Otherwise, the tree's just randomly growing. But I feel like it has to be something where however many kills, the more kills, the faster the tree grows. And whatever this tree is doing, it's gonna be bad. Like, it's still growing and she's still tending to it. So even though it's grown to like this full-on size tree, she's still tending to it because there are certain things that she has to wait for. It has to be 100% before she can do whatever her giant plan is. Maybe it'll actually give birth to the real box, like Pandora's actual box, instead of this little tiny one that she has, or something like that, because it's supposed to be like all the evils of the world. And I guess it's technically what she's doing little by little, but I don't know. This, I feel like this has to be something. Maybe it's bringing all those evils together, and sort of with her box in this case, kind of how she absorbed the horsemen in the first episode, it's like a limited source, and the tree will be like the ultimate source. So she can't just unleash madness upon the world. She gets like one thing at a time, and she kind of. In this episode, it seemed like she kind of had to coax the box just to give her a weapon. That's how it felt. It seemed like it lasted a little bit, and she was kind of speaking to it and trying to figure things out. And then, she got the knife, and it just seemed like she kind of had to convince it to keep putting out more evil. So I feel like this tree is probably like the ultimate version of that, where it's like once it's completely full and all the flowers have bloomed on it and everything else, she could just whip out like anything she wants, like the most devastating version of whatever she wants. So it's still building up very little in this episode compared to the last one, which was like tiny little sprout to full on tree at the very end of the episode. But apparently that doesn't really matter. It's just, it has to be 100%. So it'll keep growing, I'm assuming, because there's always someone that dies. That's just how it goes. So it's going to keep growing. We're going to see where that takes it. But I enjoyed that. That was kind of cool. The other pretty interesting thing that happened that takes place in the main storyline is Abbie and Danny, because he kind of invites her to dinner and stuff. And he mentions, it's platonic, but he mentions, like, we don't have to let what happened get between us, but I feel like it will at some point. Like, it'll be platonic for a while, and then it'll be a relationship, or a pseudo relationship. Like, it shouldn't be, of course, because it's like boss and subordinate, but that doesn't stop everything. It just doesn't. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm not sure, but he's totally giving her like free reign. Like, hey, you do good. I know how that works. That's just how it's gonna be. So that was pretty cool. We didn't see too much interference with like Ichabod being with Abbie in this episode. It was like nothing. It was just like he's a part of the FBI basically. So he was there. He also decides that he wants to become a citizen so that he can save their base of operations, which is pretty cool. I love the opening scene with him, or like his opening scene where he's doing the quotes and everything. And it's just like a very rousing speech. And Abbie's like, here comes Jefferson. And he's like, Quoth Jefferson. And it was just really funny, which I've never heard quoth before, but apparently that's the old English way to say to quote someone. But I love that. We also get, and I can't remember her name, but we get the Historical Society. I believe she's the president or one of the high-ranking members. We get to see her again, which is pretty cool. She's like one of the few people that's actually survived an episode, so it was cool to see her come back. And they definitely played it up again in this episode that she might have feelings for Ichabod, and he certainly seemed to have feelings for her. Like, even if it was very minor, he kind of did. And I loved how he kind of changed in this episode from the beginning. Like, when they were at the office and the woman's like, only a U.S. citizen can sign to help keep a place preserved. The first thing I thought was like, why doesn't Abbie just sign this? And then we find out is that he wants to kind of do things on his own. But Abbie signs it because that was like the second time they did it, I'm assuming. So she just signs it anyway, and it's like, look, this is just how it's going to be right now because we help each other. So he is that, and then he doesn't argue with the woman. He's like, I'll do it on my own. And then she's like, I think she said, like, her brother-in-law was a part of the a full on thing. So he was like, I will gladly accept your assistance. Like, streamline that service. And it's like, you know what? I guess I can get some help. That's fine. So I actually like that scene. And I would love to see Ichabod have a relationship thing happen too. That would be pretty cool. I mean, the last one wasn't the best, so it would be nice to see him end up with a normal woman and just who isn't gonna turn evil or anything like that. And they just get to know each other, even if it takes a while and it's just like they're friends and they just get closer and closer in this season, and nothing officially happens until the next season. I'd be totally fine with that. I think it would just be a cool idea to see Ichabod have to go through the customs of courting a woman in today's time. I mean, it's pretty much the same. Just be cordial, be nice. You pay for dinner. But I'd like to see that play out because before it was like, oh, they seem like they have a bit of chemistry, but of course during that time it was just like, well, I'm with my wife. I still have my wife, and I'm gonna save my wife, and that's pretty much it. I believe she was in the last season, so it was like, and that was even when Katrina was actually out of the mirror and everything. So it was just like, oh, there's this woman who kind of gets Ichabod, and it's like, oh, hey, you really into historical stuff and things like that. And I don't believe they ever mention anything about him being married, but I really can't remember, to be totally honest. But I'd love to see that happen. And then we have Abbie and Ichabod dealing with weird relationship stuff. And with Ichabod, of course, it would just be hilarious. And him trying to kind of make that all that stuff work, I think would be pretty cool. But like this episode, it was pretty fun. The side stuff, with our new Team B was definitely cool. A little introduction to a possible rival. I'm assuming that she will end up being the rival for Abbie and Joe, so I'm excited for that and seeing what the heck this shard is for. Don't think it'll, like I said, converge with the Pandora stuff, but it's going to be its own insane thing, which is actually really great. So looking forward to that. Like the main story, Pandora even visited Abbie and Ichabod at the end, which is pretty cool. Like, that was the first time that happened. Also, the ending of the case in general was actually fairly amazing. Like, first we find out that, like, he's bulletproof. We had a really funny scene after Abbie thought she killed him. She was like, damn. And then he gets up. He's like, oh, damn. Like, he's alive. So that was really funny. Then we find out that he's, like, fully bulletproof. He can just have, like, metal just form on any part that's about to be in danger, even though that was like the worst CG ever. I was like, that is really, really crappy. But aside from that, it was really cool. And so then we have the ending where Ichabod injects himself with malaria so that the tainted blood would be drained from him and defeat the knife. That was insane. I didn't know that's what happened at first. I honestly figured I thought there would be like a button or something that he could do to release the blood. And I figured as it was draining, he just released the blood onto the blade and it just got absorbed with his blood, and simple as that. But he injected it into himself, which made it even crazier when Abbie actually said that. But even before that, he actually got stabbed. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I knew he would live. I think we all knew that. But sometimes that's all it takes. The fact that the main characters get wounded by enemies, especially to that extent where he just got full on stabbed. It wasn't like, oh, I got cut or, I got stabbed in the arm. He got stabbed straight in the stomach. And I was like, holy crap, I knew he would live, of course. But it was still really cool. Like, man, he actually got hurt in this episode. And it wasn't just a minor thing, oh, we were punched or we were thrown across a room, which should do a lot more damage, but we all know in TV that you can get tossed across a room, it doesn't mean anything. But being stabbed always has an effect, so that was actually very cool, even though I knew he'd be totally fine. It was still pretty sweet to see that happen, because it was just like, holy crap, full-on danger. And, he ended up being okay. He got, I assume he, got surgery and a blood transfusion or something, but it was totally fine, and that was just a pretty cool moment how they did that. And Pandora actually going to Abbie and saying, like, how does that feel, losing someone? And it was very interesting that she said that. It seemed, like they mentioned her knowing their secrets. It seemed like she wanted to almost repeat history for Abbie for some reason and have her lose another person. It's like she kind of wants that for both of them, and she, whoever ends up being the survivor, that's who she's going to taunt, really. But it seemed kind of weird that she made a point to do that. So I'm not sure why, but it seemed like she she made it known, and Abbie even says it herself, like, you aren't the only one on Pandora's sort of hit list. So it's like, why did she make a point to go to Abbie and say that and like taunt her as Ichabod is like, passing out after being stabbed and almost killed? Why did she make a point to go to Abbie and say like, how does it feel to lose someone like that if she doesn't blame Abbie for that in some way? So that's kind of my speculation on it, but I want to know what you guys think about that. Is just this episode in general. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, least favorite parts, and despite all the cool stuff that happened in this episode, I want to know what you guys think about our whole Team B situation, because they got introduced last time, but this time it's like they kind of had this like flat out. It was half this episode, and we got some pretty cool stuff. Like I said, possible introduction of a rival. We might see Randall come back in the future, although I kind of doubt it. He got tricked to by the girl. She stole his car too, which I would be really mad about that because that's a cool car. But he gets tricked, gets his car stolen, and they just leave him handcuffed in the bathroom. So it's like, all right, he's most likely not coming back. He screwed up. That's all there is to it. But that does kind of show that there are multiple people interested. I'm sure they both weren't hired by the same people, because that would be stupid. So I'm not sure how things are going to play out with that, but I love it so far. I'm incredibly excited for it, honestly. I don't know why I'm so excited, because it's just going to be another mission, but something about it just seems really exciting. Like, it's this thing that has nothing to do with the witness stuff. Still magical, but it's not like, oh, we're being attacked by demons and stuff because we're the only ones that can stop this. It's just Jenny and Joe just happen to be the ones involved with this shard, which had no significance at all until very recently. So some people, multiple people, found out about this shard and that it can do something really huge for humans. Because I doubt they could be demons, so that's actually a possibility, just in disguise. But I was assuming humans until like just now when I thought about it. But either way, I love it. But I want to know what you guys think, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.